World Health Organization Quality of Life Group. Research collaborates with the Institute of the Mind Humanities of Wongang University in South Korea. That is our university. And currently, Nay, one Buddhist teacher in training at the Auckland Temple in New Zealand. So he got the same uniform for us, with us. And currently, an executive community member of the New Zealand Buddhist Council, which promotes collaboration among Buddhist organizations in New Zealand. Author or co-author of more than 60 academic journal articles and book chapters. Co-editor or a book on student well-being and author on a book on research methods in psychology. Currently working on a second edited book on student well-being and a second authored book on how to conduct research in mindfulness. So he's today main, talking about the mindfulness. So also he got the family to here, and his wife Annie over there, and son Ananda. So welcome, Dr. Chris.
I'll move over to English now. It's a great honor to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's always wanted to come to this center here, the One Buddhism Meditation Center in Gosford. So it's a real pleasure to be here. Before I carry on, is the sound okay? Is it not too? Yes, okay. Oh, good. Yeah. So I've been to the One Buddhist Temple in Belmore before. I've always wanted to come here, and we arrived last night. It was dark already when we got here. So waking up this morning after the 5 o'clock meditation, it started to daylight started to become bright, and then it was really exciting after the meditation and walking around here, because I've been here, slept here, but didn't see very much, and it's very good to be here. Plus, in New Zealand, there are very, very different animals. You've lived in New Zealand before, so you only have birds, and everything else we consider a pest. And just the wildlife here is just amazing. I just find it fascinating. Apart from that, everything is quite similar, actually, really, when you arrive in Sydney, and it doesn't, my wife was saying, it doesn't actually feel like going to another country. It just feels like a domestic flight. And plus, it's only 3 hours. Probably going to other places in Australia takes much longer. So it really doesn't actually feel like an overseas trip. So there's a lot of similarities. Even our flags are the same, come on. And New Zealand wanted to change it, right? You've probably heard of the referendum. So New Zealanders decided to keep the flag. So see how much we love you, we want to be like you. So anyway, thank you very much for the introduction, Yang Tabanim. And just realized how many, you obviously figured out that I really love psychology. I'm very passionate about it, and that's also my job. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Psychology at Auckland University of Technology. I'm originally from Germany, actually. You probably figured it out by now. Me speaking. Don't really sound like a Kiwi. And I spent most of my time overseas as well. As a young child, I've spent my early childhood years in Japan, and then moved back to Germany, and then back to New Zealand, where I met my lovely wife Annie there at the back, who's from Thailand. So we speak German and Thai and English at home. So we have lots of languages at home. It's quite international. So yeah, anyway, just a bit of housekeeping. I guess just need to. Okay, all right. I'll just carry on. Please stop me when I'm just rambling on too much. Okay, so yeah, so at the University of Auckland, Auckland University of Technology, AUT, you know, we have a research program on quality of life, and that's the WHO Quality of Life Centre. And we're also looking at research on mindfulness, and particularly how to measure it. Psychologists like to measure things. And we like to talk about things. When you do a psychology degree, the first thing you know, a lot of students join psychology and they think, in the first lecture they think we're just going to talk to each other. But no, we look at graphs, we look at statistics, and then the talking comes much later. But of course both is important. You want to measure things, you want to evaluate. You know, psychological therapy is very expensive, and there's a lot of pressure to demonstrate that, you know, it's actually helped. So you want, part of that means measuring. So we're trying to crazy things to measure mindfulness, measure the mind. So how we're doing this is through questionnaires. It's a bit of echoing, is it? Yeah? It's a bit loud, is it? Okay, I'll just carry on. Yeah, so today I'll tell you a little bit about mindfulness, and especially how the psychologists understand it, and then I'll compare it to mindfulness, how Buddhists understand it, because obviously, you know, as it's been pointed out, today's occasion is the celebration of Enlightenment Day of Sotaesan, the founding master of One Buddhism. So we're here for a reason. And we'll talk about the significance of this Enlightenment Day for our own mindfulness practice. So every year, you know, One Buddhist celebrates Enlightenment Day at the end of April, this time of the year. We're not celebrating the birth of the founding master, but his enlightenment. So he's always been a very curious individual from being a young child. Always asked very difficult questions, such as why do clouds and winds arise, or from the calm and clear sky. Looked at nature, asked lots of questions. And after 20 years of trying to work it out, he achieved enlightenment on the 28th of April, 1916, so exactly 100 years ago, pretty much. So he was enlightened to Ilwan, the circle sign, and it's got lots of interpretations what it is. We talked about Dharmakaya, Buddha. Sometimes it's talked about as Buddha nature, the essence of Buddha's mind. So it's quite an abstract. You haven't got a Buddha statue, but essentially that's very similar to that. I explained to my son as cause and effect, as nature taking its course, you know, what's bringing about the different seasons, all of that, and what's also causing. We are derived from nature, obviously, so it's underlying our own mind. So, and this is the standard of practice. We want to aim to be to have a calm mind and also be enlightened, obviously. So this enlightenment is supposed to be shared. It's not for somebody's own benefit. Yeah? Enlightenment is something that you want to share. So that's why I guess when you have different religions starting, and the founding master Sotaesan, he also offered a vision for future society to popularize Buddhism, to bring it to the people. In Korea especially, it tended to be in the mountains, and it's a nice outing, nice weather, and you go to the mountains. But that's great, and it makes you calm. But it's actually reasonably easy to be calm in a meditation retreat center. I mean, just look around. It's so beautiful. You don't have to do much meditation. You're already quite calm. The challenge is to do it in your everyday life. Yeah, when you're sitting on a bus, sitting in a queue, you're in a rush. Someone bumps into you. You feel, you know, certain emotions are rising. That's when it's difficult. Okay, that's when you have to practice. I'm not saying we don't need retreats. Yes, I love retreats and they're very important. But the important practice is your own practice in everyday life. So that was the goal. And also the understanding that our societies are more complex now. Technology is taking over. I mean, just look at the bus. You know, I take the bus to work a lot. So I stand and I can see what people are up to. People are sitting there with their iPhones and checking Facebook 5 minutes, then move over to something else and this and that. talking to each other on the phone. Technology is important. We can't deny it. We have to learn to live with it. So the solution is not to throw away the phone, but to actually learn how to control it. So, for example, myself, I've noticed that I spend a lot of time checking the news at work, you know. And it's really bad for your posture, it's bad for your eyes. You work a few hours, and then what? You should actually relax. You should go for a walk, make a cup of tea, talk to a colleague. No, I found myself, all right, I'm tired writing this article, so I'm just going to check the news. And here I am, still sitting in the same posture in front of the computer, still staring at the screen, right? So I start a timer. Now I only allow myself a certain amount of time that I actually look at the news. Because seriously, what's going to happen? You know, if I've checked the news already 45 minutes ago, what's going to happen in the last 45 minutes? You know, and same with Facebook users. People checking their emails compulsively, constantly expecting this very, very important email or message from somebody. Like we're really going to miss out on something. So again, I'm not trying to say we ditch all that, but we need to learn how to deal with this properly. So you know, we don't actually become slaves of the technology, but we actually taking advantage of it. So and a lot of other people have pointed that out as well. So it's at the time of in 1916. So just imagine, in around about that time, early 20th century, Soto-san pointed that out. But at that time, the technology was already still quite basic, and you know it's developing much faster now. So it's really becoming more and more relevant. We also know, psychologists talk about it a lot, is that we have a very, very high rate of depression and anxiety disorders in modern societies. The statistics even go up to 15 to 20% of the population, right, at a given point in time have suffer from depression or anxiety. So just imagine that. Go through busy Sydney street and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One person with depression and anxiety. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Doesn't quite work that way. I guess you would argue, you know, people with depression are not going to walk around street. Well, they are, but roughly, you know what I mean. It's quite dramatic. And over the course of your lifetime, of someone's lifetime, 50% of people are going to experience a psychological disorder at some point. I'm not talking about the usual ups and downs. You know, when a loved one passes away, of course, grief is very normal and it's healthy, and everyone encourages you to go through the grieving process. But prolonged sadness or phobias or anxiety disorders, so it's 50% chance. It's quite a high chance probability that this is happening. Religions have actually often been the psychologists in the past. Now we charge money, but before people would see just a priest. It's free. And now psychologists often do the same thing, but they're charging for it. Or insurances pay for it. So religions are actually becoming less relevant, and there's much more choice around. Probably I heard there are quite a few other centres around here in the street, so you can basically choose. So religions become perhaps less relevant, but spirituality isn't. Spirituality is actually just as important as it was before. People are defining it separately. People are making the distinction. Somebody might say, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. But previously that came as a package. So that's and look at the self-help books that are around, in bookshops. You see how much people are actually craving for meaningful lives, and it's not just happiness is one thing, but contentment. Happiness that's really long-lasting and meaningful, not just really yay, my rugby club has won, and you're happy for a while, but it's not really the deep, meaningful happiness that you enjoy when you have a meal with your family. So there are many reasons why somebody might try mindfulness. You're obviously interested in mindfulness, you've come here. And I looked at a recent article that I read categorize people into, some people are spiritual seekers, some people have a curiosity, they're always wondered about why things are the way they are. Other people actually just want relief from psychological suffering. They might have some mild depression, not quite enough to see a psychologist, but maybe try a bit of meditation and you can deal with this. Other people dealing with physical pain, might suffer from cancer or have chronic pain, fibromyalgia or something, and meditation helps you with that a lot. And some people just want more meaning, want to be happier. So there are lots of reasons why people are trying mindfulness. My own personal opinion is, it's also good as a preventative. I mean, we all know, let's face it, we all know that eventually something negative is going to happen in our lives. Right? You want to be ready for it in advance. Now, if you've already have 20 years of meditation under your belt, you're ready for it. Why wait until the bad things happen in your life? So that you can see it that way. It's almost like an insurance policy. So anyway, how does psychology teach mindfulness? And as I said before, psychologists like to measure things, and psychologists like to define things quite as well. So psychologists often talk about mindfulness as paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So this definition is from John Kabat-Zinn, who started a program called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction in the United States, the Massachusetts Medical School, in the 1970s. So back then it was still quite alternative. People would call him a hippie or it's this sort of this new age flavor. It's mainstream, much more mainstream now. Mindfulness, you don't get funny looks at psychology departments anymore when you talk about mindfulness. You used to. This is how conservative psychology used to be. Much more open-minded towards now. And this program was used for people who actually suffered from chronic pain, and also, as the name implies, for stress reduction. And often people would suffer from chronic pain, and their medication doesn't work anymore. So they learn how to deal with the pain. You don't actually get rid of the pain, but you're suffering. This distinction between pain and suffering. And so you often hear the phrase, pain is inevitable. Everyone's going to have pain, but suffering isn't. So, for example, my son over there, when he's sick, when he's got a cold, he just keeps playing. Whereas as an adult, you often sort of think, oh, I'm just whinging. Oh no, I've got a cold again. Oh no, and I can't go to work, and then work's going to pile up. Or I can't do this, I can't do that, and I promise to. That is actually the worst part. You're worrying about the cold. You're making up additional suffering. And children are good at this. They don't do it. They just go play. And just cough a little bit in the meantime. That's we can use them as an example, as a master, perhaps. Okay, so let's go with the definition again. It's paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So in the present moment, that means I'm not constantly thinking about other things. Not thinking about the past, what have I done wrong, what could I have done better. I don't know, maybe it was when we had the meditation just now, what were you thinking? Were you thinking about the past? Or were you thinking about the future? What's going to be for lunch? I come to the meditation center a lot and always expect yummy Korean food. What type of person are you? Were you able to cut it out and stop thinking about the past and the future? So this is what's meant by being in the present moment. So not constantly thinking about something else. Because I don't know how much you sleep, but let's say I try to get 7 to 8 hours. Okay? I think I function quite well then. If I can, try as much as possible. Some of you might need 10 hours, 9 hours. Some of you are happy with 6 hours. So those, let's say 8 hours is the average for an adult. 8 hours a day you are asleep, and then the rest you're often thinking about something else. You're often thinking about the future and the past. So actually, how many hours in the day are you actually fully there? Playing with someone, talking with someone, having a conversation, looking them in their eye, actually listening to it, listening to what the other person is saying, as opposed to drifting off. Yeah? So that's what being in the present moment is about. And non-judgmentally is you just stop evaluating, labeling, blaming, judging, and that goes hand in hand with the present moment. So, for example, if I suffer from, let's say, depression, for example, and I feel like I'm a failure, I might, constantly think about it. And Chris, you've done it again. Oh, you've done it this way again. Oh no. So a lot of the suffering is just me going over at the past and I could have done it this way better and this way better. Traditional psychology would actually kind of go head on and would say, all right, Chris, you think you're a failure. Well, how about we just write down a list. On the left, in the left-hand column, you're going to write down all the things you have achieved in your life. In the right-hand column, you're going to write down the things that you probably could have done better. Right? Sort of an exercise you do. And as you're filling it in, you might actually find out that, hey, Chris, I've actually done quite a lot on the left. I'm actually not a failure. But that's sort of a more rational way. You're trying to convince people to saying, oh, actually, no, you've done quite a lot. Don't beat yourself up about it. And you're just being human. Now, mindfulness does it very differently. You don't evaluate it in the sense of, this is what you've done. There's much. No, you're not using logic. You're not trying to use logic to argue that I'm not a failure. You're just changing it to I'm having a thought that I'm a failure. It's actually very powerful. It's just adding this little phrase to the front. Rather than I'm a failure, I'm having a thought that I'm a failure. You separate it, the label failure, from yourself. You're just having a thought that you're a failure, so what? Move on. I'm having a thought again. So it's just really, you're not identifying yourself with the thought. Oh, I am ugly, I am fat, I'm overweight. No, you're changing it to I am having a thought I'm overweight. So you're just deciding to let it go. You're observing it. Oh, here am I again. I'm having this thought again. Oh, it's going away again. And this is where the meditation is good for. You actually then are able to carry this over into everyday life. On the meditation mat, it's a little bit easier. In everyday life, it's a bit harder. That's also what one Buddhism is really pretty good at, I think, trying to achieve this. Especially trying to use it in everyday life. So we want to, as I said, meditation mat is a very different thing. So you're just deciding, you're more in control. You are deciding what thoughts are you gonna ride with. So it seems to work nicely with people in psychotherapy. I've talked about it a lot. And yes, people with depression, they blame themselves a lot, and people with anxiety worry about the future. What about people who don't have these issues that much? And that's called the second generation mindfulness programs for people who are seeking it to have a happier life and perhaps more meaning in their life. So for that, the definitions of mindfulness focus more on curiosity, attention regulation. So what am I deciding to pay attention on? Openness and acceptance. And we all know that from the wisdom of the ages, just noticing things. That's why it's nice to go for a walk. When you go for a walk, you smell things. You notice things more. Oh, there's a bird here. There's a tree here. Those are the characteristics of happy people. A lot of people in the world are actually mindful. They don't use the word mindfulness, but then they are mindful. They're noticing. They're engaging with the environment. They're in the present moment. And there's other things, a lot of activities you can do. You can do gardening. Gardening is particularly nice. You can also see the cycle of life. You can see, birth, growth, decay, and death. You're observing. And we are all part of this. We've talked about cause and effect. Now we're talking about the understanding that we are actually also part of the cycle of life. Also, we are going to experience decay and death one day. We just have to learn to accept it and be ready for it. So you can do a puzzle, you can do cross stitch. You probably would have noticed mindful coloring books for adults. Yeah, there's a lot there. Obviously, people are very interested in this. There's also criticism coming now. Some people talk about Mac mindfulness. You know, the idea that you are, creating lots of mindfulness programs and trying to make money, and so it's perhaps a bit overdone. You know, if you put mindfulness in a book title, it sells better. Those kind of things. So it's going a little bit sometimes in too extreme. But ultimately, a lot of people have good intentions, and yeah. So we just have to still remember mindfulness actually has a spiritual origin still, right? Ultimately, it is about meaningfulness. It's designed to help people have a calm mind and find meaning in their lives. That's what really is designed for. Sometimes when you, especially when you're talking about mindfulness, you get the impression that it's a lot about promoting increase in pleasure. Oh yes, I'm mindful, I can eat mindfully, I can enjoy. I've spent $3 on my ice cream, I can enjoy it for 10 more minutes more, I can enjoy it more intensely. I suppose you can use mindfulness for that way, but mindfulness is actually something deeper and more meaningful. So in Buddhism, happiness and enjoyment aren't necessarily bad. Yeah? So I'm not saying enjoying an ice cream is a bad thing, as long as you don't get attached to it. And that's the thing, attachment is the main thing. So we want long-lasting happiness. So there we need to understand what brings us suffering. And for that, everything is impermanent, everything is changing, everything is a result of cause and effect. So we need to listen to the messages from enlightened masters. There are many masters, and many, including non-Buddhists, of course, we learn from everybody. And this is where the enlightenment, we're here for Enlightenment Day, this is where enlightenment actually matters. So mindfulness is more than just simply the meditation. It is about insights, understanding yourself, reflection, meaningful behavior, and also I'll talk about later about morality as well. So there's been a lot of discussion in psychology about whether mindfulness should be non-judgmental. Originally the word comes from the word, mindfulness was translated from sati, a word from Pali language. And it actually means remembering. So you're constantly remembering your purpose, or the teachings of Buddhism. So you're constantly remembering what is healthy for you and what is unhealthy. So you're not really just focusing on any thought that comes to mind. Now I'm having a thought of this. You still want to encourage healthy thoughts and discard unhealthy thoughts. So Buddhism talks about right mindfulness. There's a difference between mindfulness and right mindfulness, because otherwise you could just be a mindful criminal, yeah, and that won't bring you happiness either. So in Buddhism, in one Buddhism in particular, we talk about the threefold learning, or samma. So here we are cultivating our mind. We've had chanting before. We've had meditation. That's very important. Chanting is especially good when your mind is when you notice, your mind is quite busy. It's particularly good in the evenings after a long day. In the morning, probably sitting meditation, quiet meditation could be your main thing. And it gives us power. It's almost like you're training your muscle in your brain. And we know that the brain actually does change. There have been some studies that looked at that. But what's also important is insight into facts and principles. So we need to understand how our own mind works. What makes you angry? In what situations? So noticing yourself. And then it gives, plus then you have the calm mind that gives you the power that you don't have to react. So when you're in a challenging situation, driving a car is great mindfulness practice. If someone cuts across, or tailgating you, rather than probably the cascades of thoughts coming in, just watch them and say, okay, if you're in a hurry, I'll pull over and you pass. Yeah. So that is basically, and everyone has their own sort of pet weaknesses, or it's wrong word, but their own weaknesses. So you understand your own mind, understand what do you need to work on. Yeah. So everyone's different. So we do this through careful observation of ourselves, reflection, diary writing. It's also used in psychology a lot, but one Buddhist really encourages this. You write a diary in the evening, and you reflect on how you could have done things better. And if you do this regularly, anyone who's kept a journal or diary before will notice, if you do this for a long time, you almost like writing a diary in everyday life. You're just more alert and aware. It helps you make the right decisions. And that's what's important. We need to make the right choices. What's the point meditating and reading books and reflecting when you're not making the right choices and doing things that result in wrong outcomes? So this is where morality is very important. When you're sitting on a meditation mat, or you're sitting there nicely, you can afford to be non-judgmental and just observe. Your thoughts come and go. And as I said, we're a very peaceful environment here. It's quite easy to be calm. But when you're faced with a challenging situation in everyday life, you need to then be able to distinguish between skillful and unskillful. Yeah, so often it's just a matter of a second. And you then stop and go, okay, what am I doing? What emotion am I feeling now? Do I have to go this way? I have a choice. I don't have to get angry. I don't have to get sulky or just have a knee-jerk reaction. You're in charge. You're putting yourself back in charge through mindfulness. And so you're doing this meditation gives you the power to do this in everyday life. This is what it's about. So mindfulness cannot be separated from morality and from ethical behavior. And even in psychology, actually, psychologists talk a lot about ethics as well. I've just recently been to a conference and also wrote a couple of articles about this. In psychology, it's a bit different though. Psychology is secular, which means it's non-religious. Yeah, so you don't talk about 10 commandments, you don't talk about any precepts, because your clients could be of any religion, and you're respecting that, and you, as a psychologist, might have your own, but you don't bring it into the therapy room. So that's sort of the problem. When you join a meditation center or join a retreat, there are some rules. Don't smoke, don't drink, don't do this, don't do that, and you follow that. But in a psychology situation, you don't. But we all know at the same time that it's actually healthy to live according to values. Some therapies, like for example ACT, specifically ask the clients to write down values that people have. Yeah? We all have values, but sometimes we've forgotten about them. What are you passionate about? Are you passionate about the environment? Are you passionate about helping other people? Everyone has got certain values that you probably carry with you, and you're not really aware of them. Maybe tonight, just take some time and write them down. And reflect a little bit on your own values. And what makes people happy is that you are able to live according to those values. Yeah? So having values isn't enough. It's good to have them and be aware of them, but actually putting them in place. So when you're actually passionate about environmentalism, and you're able to volunteer and help out, that's been found to actually lead to happiness. Yeah? So psychologists know of the importance of helping other people, being there for others. That's very, very important. So, in psychology, we've talked about non-judgmental awareness of just watching your mind and not judging yourself. That you're being easy on yourself, that you're compassionate, that you're not blaming yourself. And I probably won't have so much time. According to Buddhism, you can see the world in two perspectives. On one hand, we see the world as it is and presents to us, where we can see the world as, we're all separate, we're all sitting, there's a mat, there's a table, but on the other hand, we're all connected. Yeah, we're all connected through a series of events, cause and effect. Something's brought us together. I can't exist on my own. I'm so dependent on so many people. If I actually think back of how much I've received from other people and nurtured from the world, it's just overwhelming how much is actually behind us. So you constantly, according to Buddhism, mindfulness also means that you are always aware of this impermanence, and what in Buddhism also, in one Buddhism particularly, gratefulness. That in everything you're doing, you're also aware of what has given you your life. Every morning, you're eating a meal. Isn't it amazing? I mean, a farmer's spend a lot of time getting the grains, and you just pour it in a cereal bowl and a bit of milk on top. But actually, if you think about it, what has actually gone into this, how much we're really connected in this society. So mindfulness also means awareness of all of these at the same time. So you can see that the deeper insights, and most of you probably would have read, I'll chat to you afterwards. I would imagine a lot of you have a long interest in Buddhism or philosophy and wisdoms. And everyone has their own insights. And it takes a long time to develop them. Yeah? But we can't. But at the same time, you're doing meditation while you're still developing your insights. So you're doing meditation and then getting insights, or you're getting insights which helps you with your meditation. So it's a little bit dynamic, right? So understanding the world makes you want to meditate, and doing meditation helps you understand the world better. So it goes a little bit hand in hand. So we should really focus more. Sometimes the philosophy, everyone has got their own motivation, whether you bring philosophy in it or not. And we constantly have these discussions in Buddhism, whether to what extent what point is best to introduce. So that's why it's very important to discuss it with a teacher. And you also, coming back to my earlier point about measuring the psychology, we also notice that there, my work's been a lot on mindfulness questionnaires. So when somebody is starting a meditation program, you give them a questionnaire and they fill in a bunch of questions. And after a few weeks later, they fill in the same questionnaire, and you might see a change. And you might expect that one of these questions is actually to what extent, for example, as you drive a car, you probably would have had it sometimes. You drive a car, and then you ask yourself, was it just a red light? I can't remember, or was I just sort of absent mind? It's called the automatic pilot. Yeah. So those are the kind of questions you might ask in questionnaire. You're actually finding that as people do more mindfulness practice, they realize actually how much more absent-minded they really are. So when people are filling the questionnaire and then they do meditation, sometimes the score goes actually down. And the meditation teacher goes, really? Did I not teach you anything, or did you not make any progress? Actually, the score has gone down because you've made progress. You realized how often you are absent-minded. And that's quite common. We often, it's similar with pain. When you've never experienced any serious pain before, yeah, and then you might rate something as very painful. But if you've had an accident after that, or given birth to a child, and then experienced the same pain, you feel, oh Lord, I've been through this. I've been there, done that. It's nothing for me anymore. So your standard is changing. Okay? So as you practice more mindfulness, as you continue with your mindfulness practice, you're raising the bar constantly. You're then realizing how often you're absent-minded. So, yeah, what I found interesting in with Won Buddhism is that they're also actually very interested in measuring things, and maybe that's what attracted me to it a little bit. In the old days, there was a museum. If you go to South Korea, there's a museum. You can see the original old instruments people have used back then in the early days of Won Buddhism. So what they used to do is they have a sort of a bean counting system, training system. So you have a belt and you have got a little pouch there, and then in one pouch you put white beans if you've done something mindfully, and another one you place a black bean if you've done something in an absent-minded way. Okay, so it's almost like you're kind of measuring yourself. So, for example, if you parked your car and then you've walked off and then you forgot, oh, did I actually switch off the light? And you end up having to walk back. I guess you could give yourself then a black point. Yeah. Okay. So or you are boiling some vegetables and you get a phone call and then you realize, or you forgot that actually you had something on the stove, yeah? Giving yourself a black point. On the other hand, a white point could be when you've done something very successfully. So for example, a personal story for myself is that, I was driving a car in a car park. It's kind of dark, and our car has got this really strange, the corner you can't really see very well. And then my wife was sitting next to me, and then I was still going quite slowly, but I didn't see a person walking past. Yeah. So and then my wife called out and said, "Stop, Chris! You're running over this person." And then I did stop, of course. And then immediately noticed the thoughts coming to mind, going, having to defend yourself, explain yourself, why, so, it's the car, it's not me, it's the car. So then I noticed these thoughts coming up. That was my first reaction, but then in the end I just reversed it and go, thank you, right? Thanks, Annie, for reminding me. Thanks for telling me. So that would be a white point. You've changed something, a sort of a knee-jerk reaction, something negative, some negative emotions that come up. You're changing it to something positive. So if you do that more often, it becomes a habit, and will carry over. It's actually very, very powerful. I'll show you here a little device you can use. Okay, so it's a little bit like when people for medication, when people take medicine or something. But here you can see you can move the counters from left to right. So on the left you can see the white points. Goes up all the way to 11. I never reach 11. Okay, I never get there. But okay, let's say I'm on 4. Had a good day, I'm on 4. And then the black ones tend to be more. Let's say I'm on 6 at the end of the day. Okay? And then you look at it and you reflect. When you write the diary, you go, okay, maybe describe some of your situation. But I tell you what, the numbers don't actually matter. Yeah? It doesn't matter whether I had 4 or 6, or it's not a competition. You're not coming here every Sunday and then you say, ask, what was your score today? And then you compare, and then someone gets a chocolate fish because they had the highest score. That's doing it the wrong way. It's for yourself. And the points don't actually matter. And it's an interesting thing to finding it also in psychology. When you're writing things down, as you keep a diary, you become more aware. As you're measuring, you become more aware of your own behavior. So we actually did a study, a couple of colleagues and I. We looked at when people use questionnaires in psychology. We're using a quality of life questionnaire. When people, so let's say you're seeing somebody and they give you a questionnaire to fill in. Just filling in that questionnaire is already actually kind of therapeutic. You think about it, You then have a discussion with somebody else about it. You reflect about. You reflect. You think about yourself. And quite often, when it's also a phenomenon you find quite often when, for example, when someone wants to quit smoking, a psychologist might then say to you, "All right, you want to stop smoking? Give me a baseline. Please write down how many cigarettes a day you smoke, right? And do that for a week and come back later." Okay, people do this. And they write down, let's say, 15, 14. And quite often, you are finding that the score is actually decreasing. It's gone down. Psychologist hasn't done anything yet. They haven't talked about your feelings, they haven't talked about it. All they said is, write down how much you smoke. And by doing that, people realize, oh yeah, I smoke quite a lot, maybe I should cut it down. Or coffee, I don't know what your the thing is that you want to work on, yeah? Write down how many cups of coffee you have. Just the exercise of writing that down will bring it down. It's quite common. Or exercise. Write down how often you actually go for a walk with a dog, or just go for a walk, take a bus. You know, so focusing on something positive. Again, writing it down that itself is already quite powerful. So that's what I quite like about it. The modern version is you can get it as an app on your iPhone, your smartphone, and you can even set up separate tasks. So you can give yourself white points for certain things. So not forgetting things. Did I switch off the car? Did I switch off the light in my car? And those kind of things. So you can see, mindfulness is a very fascinating topic. A lot of people talk about it. Psychology is very, very popular. It's also something highly personal. Yeah, a lot of people are very have their own reasons why they want to do it. We can talk about it a lot, but really the main thing is practicing it. I mean, here is me talking about it, but actually much more valuable if you just get on with it and meditate and practice it in your everyday life. Only you can evaluate and judge your own progress. Yeah, I can't evaluate it. I might see the outcome, I might see you calmer and happier, but only really you know how you're getting on. So, so you just evaluate and judge in a non-judgmental and mindful way. So I just want to leave you with this paradox. You evaluate yourself, okay? Evaluate yourself or judge yourself in a non-judgmental, mindful way. So that's me, and thank you very much for listening. Perhaps we have some questions.
I'm Eric, by the way. You mentioned that you were dependent on a lot of people, you know, your wife and your kids and your colleagues, and isn't that at odds with the sense that attachment is wrong? Attachment is bad. So you got this dependency on people, but then you've got this conflict that attachment is poor, so it's bad. So how do you rationalize that?
Yeah, that's right. So you're dependent, you're grateful, and you reciprocate. So it's when you are, it's a lot about reciprocity. So it's about you receive a lot. You're aware of how much you've actually received from other people. But yeah, that's right. Unconditional. So it's about giving back, and that giving back can be in many ways. It can be as a parent. Or which can sometimes also mean knowing when the right time is to let go. Unconditional love is actually non-attached. So when someone needs to move on, you let them move on and find if it's for their best interest. So it's about the giving back, the awareness of what you've received, and then giving back accordingly. And the attachment bit is you of course you love your family, but it's you obviously have to be aware that you're going to lose them eventually, and you mustn't be. Plus, when you're separated from them, you mustn't be If it affects you, then you're obviously, it's a negative thing. When you're constantly thinking about them, texting them, or so distraught by it. That's the mindset you should bring to it. You're sharing a journey together. You're receiving and you're giving back, and that's a nice thing.
Is the love any more than what you would feel for others that you come across in life? I think of, I suppose, the unconditional love that permeates through Buddhism, and permeates through suffrage, and permeates through Christianity as well. That suggestion of attachment may represent itself in a deeper or more clinging love than what one might feel for other people. And so should one be more aware and be very responsible when one sees this creep into one's behaviour or one's mental processes?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. I mean, we also need to, Eastern philosophy talks about the way, the Tao, the way of the parent, or the way of a father. So quite naturally we have this strong affinity on family. That is quite natural. So ideally, when you're a saint, you don't distinguish between. You should be unbiased, but you're also affected by affinities through relationships, or you've lived together. So it's quite. I guess a very highly advanced person will be able to let go of these biases. Yeah, and love everyone equally. Or they'll be yeah.
So these biases are the attachments that one must come to terms with.
Well, not something to discard, but it's extend rather than not. It's more about extending to other people rather than restricting it to the ones that you have, to your loved ones, but extending it to more people. So, feeling the same care and for more sentient beings and individuals. That would be the Mahayana approach.
And this should be a daily practice. For to achieve it requires a great deal of effort and a great deal of constancy.
That's right, and at the same time, it's the same in a way. It's similar to parenting. It's not that necessary. It doesn't necessarily mean you give blindly. I mean, with a parent, you need to set boundaries. For example, that's the best way of being. You're doing it in the interest of the child better. Sort of this interested parent, but you're not too laissez-faire. That is similar here. So it comes back to the intention, and that's in Buddhism. That's the main criterion. The intention. The outcome can sometimes be disastrous. I mean, you might have good intentions, want to help somebody, and then it ends up in being something a negative outcome. So Buddhism focuses more on the intentions. That you have the right intentions. When you have the right intentions, generally the outcome will follow as well. So the focus is on those. Yes.
I've been trying to figure out those P's you get in the present, but there was a few P's. Few P's you gave us.
Few P's?
Yes. Like paying attention.
Yeah.
And then there was the present. And then you listed quite a few.
Okay, on purpose.
On purpose, that's right. What was another one? And there must have been about 3 or 4. 5.
Purpose, present mind.
Paying attention was the first one.
Present moment, non-judgmentally, paying attention in a particular way. Particular, yeah.
Yeah, particular way, yes.
Yeah, so it's not just simply focusing on anything that you encounter. That you're not just randomly, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, you're floating along. It is actually purposeful in a particular way. So And yeah, so it's quality.
That's important, I think, the particular way.
Yes, that's right. So, are you writing it? Yeah?
I was just going to say one thing. I just noticed one comment was that how you really have to work hard at it. You know, so it's like I might have misinterpreted it. But I still think at any point you can change your attitude, and it can be instantaneous. Anybody can change your attitude. You might have all these rigid thinking, but at any point you can stop and go, oh well, I can look at this a different way. So it's not necessarily a hard work grind to live in that mindful state. It can be like just a choice in any moment that things can change. You know?
Yes, I mean, ultimately that's the goal. I mean, it needs to be effortless. And that's the paradoxes you often hear in the literature, like effortless effort, or, thought with no thought. Exactly. I mean, like when it should become a habit, and it's all about making habits. Karma is a habit. Karma is basically bad. Karma is bad habits. So you want to change it to positive habits. So, for example, when you're seeing let's say, elderly lady needs help, and you open the door, if for most of us, it becomes automatic. You don't have to think about it. Say, shall I really help her? But what if she thinks this or what? You just help. It becomes a habit. So, and that's an ideal. But we shouldn't be too strict with ourselves if it doesn't get that way, if we're not there yet. We all have our own personal strengths and weaknesses, and sometimes we just need, in certain parts, we need a bit of effort. Christian Greek Orthodox philosophy talks about a concept called nepsis, and it's also it's still practiced at the moment. So it's sometimes translated as watchfulness or heedfulness. So just being aware of what thoughts are presenting. Of course, they talk about it in very different terms. They talk about it as the thoughts of Satan, or of course, the terminology is different. But it's in mindfulness is similar. You're watching your thoughts, but when thoughts come along that are unhealthy, you need to be aware and watch out and do something about it. And of course, that means you're still a beginner and still effortful in some areas. And then as you practice more and more, it becomes more effortless, and you can be more genuine and more relaxed about it. And we all have progress in certain areas, and other areas perhaps we just need a bit of effort. And those kind of things help you a little bit. When you write a diary, do these things, and they stop becoming an effort. And that's it. Yes?
Would you distinguish between self-awareness and mindfulness? And I speak in terms of, let's say, the Judeo-Christian ideas put man at the head, at the top of the pantheon, and other animals or other creatures that exist are not imbued with spiritual life. Whereas in Buddhism, it is entirely different. And yoga and other practices that have come into practice are drawn from the concept that animals have much to teach us because they are also on a spiritual journey. So one of the propensities for what we adopt from Buddhist culture is that we turn it into something else, like yoga becomes hot yoga. And I think of the idea of hot mindfulness as well. There's the danger of doing that if you, as you've said, you disassociate the spiritual component. Then it can be something which is entirely detached and perhaps not so beneficial.
Yes, I mean, yes. Well, it ultimately is spiritual, but you can also take the approach that it's a skillful means. That if you are, it's got health benefits to it. There's no doubt about it.
I would suggest that all animals are mindful, and if you observe animals that we have in yoga, then one thing to note from them is their approach towards becoming mindful, whether they're chimpanzees or whether they're insects or whether they're lizards. But it's this detachment that Westerners often have from the natural world. That means we do not observe that,
Mm-hmm.
so we don't get to feed that in the world that, in a sense, are very much a component of, and not beyond, or not outside of. And observation of this could help in the process of mindfulness as an active component of living, which would be beneficial, but even more beneficial, I think, when you associate it with principles or ethics.
Yeah, I mean that's the big question: does the dog have the Buddha nature? Was and at the end of the day, is there suffering? Do animals? Buddhism focuses on the elimination of suffering, and Buddhism is ultimately a human phenomenon. It's a social construct. It is it's designed by humans for humans. We have to see it that way. It is very human focused. You can come up with a Buddhism for animals. I mean that animals would have to develop that. I mean that's ultimately a religion plays a role in a human society. So it is actually focused. It's got just heavy focus on it. But in terms of mindfulness, we also define mindfulness in human terms. So it's the same question of asking, do animals have language? But if we define language in terms of human language, then of course they don't. But if I define mindfulness in human terms, then animals don't have mindfulness. But if I come up with a different definition, then you could apply it. But it's just our language is obviously centered on humans and human affairs and human history, human culture. It's all loaded with it. We can't throw it away. We can't have a conversation without bringing up thousands of years of history. It's just impossible. So probably I can answer your question in a non-verbal way. Without talking. That's what my answer would have to be that way. No, there's no other way.
Is there a danger? Excuse me. Is there a danger of running red lights if you're too relaxed and mindful?
Is there danger that if you're too relaxed, if you're too mindful that you're...
If you start to relax too much, you're going to start on a red light.
Yeah, I mean that's right. I mean it's... Yeah, that's why I think heedfulness needs to come into play. You need to still be aware of cause and effect. You can't go, oh, we're all connected, we're all one. So you don't. I can have your meal, can I? Or your wallet is my wallet. You still need to. We're still dealing with an actual world, a conventional reality. Buddhists talk about a conventional reality, emptiness. So yeah, that would be the danger if you go in that way, and that's why you definitely need teachers to guide you, because there could be the wrong interpretation. That's right. You take the approach of anything goes.
I found I surf. I like to fly and surf, and that flowing, it's been proven that it helps the mindfulness in the waves in your brain. And it actually, on a nice windy road, it actually is quite relaxing too. A bit like Tai Chi or something. Nice day, nice windy road. It's quite soothing, relaxing, and not meditation, but it's just, but you just got to need to know when to change.
Yes, mindfulness can exactly. You need to know. It needs to be the rightful mindfulness at the right time.
Yeah, you've got to be aware. You can't be doing it all the time, sort of thing.
Yes, or just now. I mean, I could, at 10 o'clock this event started. I could sit in my room, a nice room. Thank you very much. And it could be up there and just meditate and be totally mindful. But I would miss the time. People would be here, would miss my talk. That would be the wrong mindfulness. So Buddhism does distinguish between right mindfulness and wrong mindfulness. That's why we had a question.
Just going what Jonah was saying about being mindfulness and practicing mindfulness and being aware of your thoughts. An indication of whether or not you are really living mindfulness is also whether you are using your senses. So if you're driving, you've got to also be aware of what is actually happening in the present moment, not just in your mind. So you have to combine them both, and that would help you feel. That would avoid you driving going to a red light.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Being the present.
To combine them both.
Yeah, but I guess the main thing is, I guess a similar example would be, it is the idea of flow. Probably some of you might have heard of it in positive psychology, that you are so immersed in something that is just, especially when we're doing a particular hobby, something that we're quite good at, and that we're so immersed in it, but then you might miss your appointments. Let's say I'm painting, and then I missed a very important appointment. I missed my flight or something like that. So that would be mindfulness at that moment, but overall it's not. So I guess I could get around the problem by setting an alarm clock. So yeah, we have mindfulness and heedfulness. I actually think the problem is in English we have limited vocabulary because of the short history of this. Buddhism distinguishes between many more different concepts. So Buddhism talks about heedfulness a lot, watchfulness. Christian concept, watchfulness. It needs to be in combination with mindfulness to avoid these scenarios that you just pointed out. Yes.
Can I talk about self-love versus compassion for others? It seems to me that the New Age movement, which seems to stem from Eastern philosophy, has grabbed bits and pieces of different Eastern philosophy and created this sort of eclectic New Age movement based on self-love. And it's just, to me, an imbalance of going towards focusing on loving oneself too much. Everywhere you turn, there's a book on self-love.
Yeah.
And it just seems as though it's just become too much with this self-love stuff. I'm all for loving yourself and being compassionate to yourself as well as others, but there seems to be this movement that has lost the plot somewhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of people trying to sell books and teach courses and those kind of things. Or you can unpack it and go, what is actually self? What is the self? Are we a social self? In indigenous cultures would often talk about a community. So collective. Collective is more important. And what is love as well? It doesn't necessarily have to be indulgence. If you're disciplined and have a routine, you're loving yourself as well. It comes back to the word itself. Doesn't say much unless you really ask, what does it mean by self? What do you mean by love? And then unpack it. And what is the intention of people communicating about self-love? So it's obviously a lot of demand for those things. People are reinventing the wheels. We are constantly redefining things, and old wisdom comes up. But what's fascinating is that throughout the ages, some kind of core wisdom is actually quite constant. You're talking about a perennial philosophy, and focusing on that's the insights, and how we communicate it and what time it just depends on the context and which we're living. So now we're living in 21st century. When we talk about these things, less about authority. We're talking about early Buddhism is often about the focus on Buddha, amazing stories, and the intention was the same. But now we are communicating those things differently. And the New Age movement is just the one sort of offshoot. That's trying to achieve a certain thing. Yeah, okay, I'd love to chat to you one-on-one if you have questions. Thank you very much.